In the peaceful lakeside community of Pinewood Shores, 12-year-old Emma Walker was enjoying a lazy summer afternoon with her golden retriever Max, when the dog's behavior suddenly turned frantic, barking relentlessly at the murky water, while pulling desperately at his leash. Before we continue this chilling tale, if you love stories that remind us to always trust our animal companions, please subscribe to our channel now for more incredible true stories that will leave you had never acted this way before. His normally playful demeanor replaced by urgent barking and whining as he paced along the shoreline. Refusing to leave despite Emma's commands, the locals had always considered Watson Lake to be nothing more than a scenic backdrop for family picnics and weekend fishing trips. No one suspected the dark secret hidden beneath its placid surface as Max continued his desperate barking. Emma noticed something unusual just below the water, a faint glimmer that didn't belong among the lake weeds and pebbles. What the young girl and her loyal companion would discover in the next few moments would change their lives forever and expose a mystery that had haunted the small town for over a decade. Emma squinted at the strange glimmer beneath the water's surface, hesitating at the lake's edge, as Max continued, his frantic barking. "What is it, boy? What do you see?" She knelt down, trying to get a better look, the afternoon sun reflecting off the lake, making it difficult to identify the mysterious object partially buried in the silt, about 3 feet from shore. Max, wind pulling harder on his leash, almost dragging Emma toward the water's edge, his paws splashing in the shallows. Okay, I'll look, but you're acting really weird." She kicked off her sneakers, rolled up the legs of her jeans, and cautiously stepped into the cool water, the soft mud squishing between her toes. Water was only ankle-deep here at the small cove, where she often brought Max to play, a secluded spot away from the main beach area where families gathered on summer weekends. Emma waded carefully toward the glinting object, her heart beating faster with each step. Max remained at the shore, his barking now reduced to anxious whimpering, as if he was afraid to follow, yet unwilling to let Emma go alone. Emma moved closer. She could see it was something metallic, rectangular, partially buried in the lake bottom. "It looks like some kind of box," she called back to Max, as if the golden retriever might offer advice. Reaching down, she tried to grasp the edge of the object, but it was firmly embedded in the mud. It stuck. Emma waded back to shore, grabbing a sturdy stick. Before returning to the mysterious box, she used the stick to dig around, the edges loosening the mud's grip, gradually revealing more of the object. It was indeed a box about the size of a small shoebox, made of metal with what appeared to be a simple latch on the front, heavily corroded from years underwater. "I need help with this," Emma muttered to herself, returning to shore to retrieve her phone from her backpack. She quickly dialed her father's number, leaving mud prints on the screen. "Dad, it's me. Can you come to the lake? To our spot by the old oak tree. Max found something weird in the water and I can't get it out." Sheriff David Walker was used to his daughter's discoveries: frogs, unusual rocks, once even an old fishing lure, but something in Emma's voice made him take notice. "What kind of something weird?" "It's like a metal box, buried in the mud." Max won't stop barking at it. There was a pause on the line. "Stay right where you are, Emma. Don't try to take it out yourself. I'll be there in 10 minutes." While waiting for her father, Emma sat on the shore beside Max, who had finally calmed somewhat, though he still stared intently at the water, as if standing guard. "What's got you so worked up, buddy?" "It's probably just someone's old tackle box." She scratched behind his ears, but the dog remained unusually tense. True to his word, Sheriff Walker's SUV pulled up at the small parking area near the lake trail. Less than 10 minutes later, he strode quickly down the path to the shoreline, his khaki uniform and sheriff's badge glinting in the afternoon sun. He was a tall man with the same sandy blonde hair as his daughter, though his was beginning to gray at the temples. "Over here, Dad," Emma called, waving him toward the small covius. Sheriff Walker approached. Max rose to his feet, his tail wagging in recognition, but his attention immediately returning to the water. "So what's this big discovery?" he asked, kneeling down to pet the agitated dog. Emma pointed to the partially visible box out there. "It's stuck in the mud." Max started freaking out and wouldn't stop barking. "Then I saw something shiny." Sheriff Walker nodded, removing his boots and socks, rolling up his pant legs. "Let me take a look." He waded into the water, moving with careful deliberation until he reached the spot. "You're right, it's some kind of box, been here a while, judging by the corrosion." He dug around the edges, working his fingers underneath until he could get a good grip. With a firm pull of the box came free from the mud, sending a cloud of silt billowing through the water. Sheriff Walker lifted it carefully, noting the unexpected weight. "Heavier than I thought." Carrying it to shore, he set the box on the grass, examining it more closely. It was made of steel with a simple hasp closure to lock mechanism, almost completely rusted away. Years of submersion had taken their toll, but the box itself remained intact. This has been in the water for quite some time. By now, several curious neighbors had noticed the commotion and gathered at the edge of the cove. An elderly couple who lived in the lakeside cabin nearest to the spot, Mrs. Henderson from 2 doors down, with her Yorkshire Terrier, and a few teenagers who had been passing by on bikes. "What did you find, Sheriff?" called one of the teenagers, a lanky boy named Tyler, who often mowed lawns around the neighborhood. "Not sure yet," Sheriff Walker replied, his expression turning professional as he noted the growing audience. He turned to Emma. "Let's take this back to the station." "But Dad, can't we open it here, please?" Emma pleaded, her eyes wide with excitement. Max found it. We should at least get to see what's inside, Sheriff. Walker hesitated, torn between proper procedure and his daughter's enthusiasm. After a moment, he nodded. All right, but step back, everyone. This could be nothing, but I'd rather be cautious. The small crowd murmured with anticipation, forming a semicircle around the sheriff, and Emma. Max remained alert, his eyes fixed on the box, as if it might somehow spring to life using a pocket knife. Sheriff Walker carefully worked at the corroded lock, the metal flaking away under his efforts. After several minutes of careful manipulation, the hasp gave way with a dull crack. Here goes nothing, he said as he slowly lifted the lid. Despite years underwater, the contents had remained remarkably protected. The box had been well sealed before its submersion. Inside, nestled in what appeared to be a plastic bag, were several items: a small leather-bound journal, its pages wrinkled but intact, a stack of photographs somehow preserved, though the colors had faded, and most striking of all, a silver locket on a delicate chain. Whose is it, Dad? Why would someone put this in? The lake, Ma asked, leaning forward for a better look. Sheriff Walker carefully lifted the locket, examining it with growing concern. Something about it seemed familiar. Though he couldn't immediately place it, he opened the small clasp, revealing a tiny photograph inside, a young woman with dark hair smiling at the camera. His expression suddenly changed, recognition dawning across his features. Dad, what is it? Do you know whose stuff this is? Emma pressed, noticing her father's reaction. Sheriff Walker closed the locket, placing it carefully back in the box. I'm not sure yet, but this needs to go to the station right away. His voice had shifted from curious father to professional lawman in an instant. But Dad, not now. Emma, he cut her off more sharply than he intended, then softened his tone. This might be evidence in a case, an old case, the onlookers whispered among themselves. Speculation already beginning to spread through the small gathering evidence. You mean like a crime? Mrs. Henderson asked, clutching her Yorkshire Terrier closer to her chest. Sheriff Walker stood, closing the box firmly. I don't know yet, but I need to take this in properly. He turned to Emma. Good job finding this, honey. You too, Max, he added, giving the golden retriever a pat that did little to ease the dog's obvious tension. Sheriff Walker carried the box toward his vehicle. Emma followed, confusion and curiosity battling across her face. Dad, please tell me what's going on. Who does that stuff belong to? Reaching his SUV, Sheriff Walker carefully placed the box on the passenger seat before turning to his daughter, his expression grave. Emma, that locket, it looks exactly like the one that belonged to Melissa Carter. Emma's eyes widened with recognition. Even though she had been only 2 years old when it happened, everyone in Pinewood Shores knew the story of Melissa Carter, the beloved young teacher who had vanished without a trace 10 years ago. Sheriff Walker's office at the Pinewood Shores police station was nothing fancy. A modest room with beige walls adorned with community service awards, a few family photos, and a large map of the county. He sat at his desk, the mysterious box now open before him, its contents carefully arranged on a clean towel. Emma sat across from him, her legs swinging anxiously beneath the chair, Max lying at her feet, still seeming unusually alert. Melissa Carter, Emma said the name slowly, as if testing how it felt in her mouth. The teacher who disappeared? You think this is her stuff? Sheriff Walker nodded, examining the silver locket more closely. I'm almost certain this is hers. Melissa wore this locket every day, according to everyone who knew her. It was a gift from her grandmother. He opened a locket again, revealing the small photograph inside, showing Melissa's smiling face, her dark hair falling around her shoulders, her eyes bright with life. She was just 28 when she vanished. Everyone loved her, especially her students. Emma leaned forward, studying the picture. What happened to her? Sheriff Walker sighed, running a hand through his hair. That's the thing nobody knows. She just disappeared one day in the middle of summer break 10 years ago. Her car was gone, some clothes missing. People assumed she'd left town, maybe for a spontaneous vacation, but she never came back, never contacted anyone. Her bank accounts went untouched, her cell phone went straight to voicemail. He turned his attention to the journal, carefully opening the water-damaged cover. The pages, though wrinkled, were surprisingly legible, the ink having held up well. This appears to be her diary. Her handwriting matches samples we have on file. Can I see the pictures? Emma asked, reaching for the stack of photographs that had been in the box. Sheriff Walker hesitated, then nodded. Just be careful, they're fragile evidence. Emma gently examined the photographs. Most showed Melissa in various locations. Around Pinewood Shores, at the school picnic, at the town's annual Founders Day celebration, standing by the lake sunset, painting the water gold behind her, and several she posed with other people. Emma recognized some of them teachers who still worked at the elementary school. Dad, look at this one. Emma held up a photo showing Melissa standing beside a tall man with silver hair, both of them smiling, though something about Melissa's expression seemed forced. Isn't that Mr. Monroe? The rich guy? With the big house on the North Shore? Sheriff Walker took the photograph, studying it with narrowed eyes. James Monroe. Yes, that's him. He owns half the commercial property in town, including the lakeside development. They were at some kind of town fundraiser, judging by the background. Did you talk to him when she disappeared? We talked to everyone, Emma. This was the biggest case Pinewood Shores had seen in decades. We interviewed her colleagues, her boyfriend, her neighbors, everyone. Who knew her? He set the photo down, a shadow crossing his face, but without any evidence of foul play, without a body, the investigation eventually stalled. Emma reached for the journal, careful not to damage the fragile pages. Can I read it? Sheriff Walker shook his head. Not yet, honey. This is evidence. I need to go through it properly first. Make copies, document everything. He gathered the items, returning them carefully to the box. This could reopen the whole case. At that moment, there was a knock. At the door, Deputy Ray Collins entered, a thin man in his mid-30s with a perpetually worried expression that made him look older. Sheriff, got your message about a discovery at the lake? Sheriff Walker nodded. Ray, come take a look, Emma and Max found something interesting this afternoon. Deputy Collins approached the desk, peering at the contents of the box, his eyes widening in recognition. Is that Melissa Carter's locket? The teacher who went missing back when I first joined the force. Looks that way, in her journal preserved in this waterproof box. Deputy Collins whistled low. After all this time buried in the lake, that's not a coincidence, is it? No, I don't think it is. Sheriff Walker's voice was grim. Which means we might not be looking at a missing persons case anymore. Emma glanced between the two men. You think something bad happened to her? Sheriff Walker exchanged a look with his deputy before answering. I don't want to jump to conclusions, but people don't generally seal their personal belongings in waterproof boxes and sink them in lakes. Emma, not if they're planning to come back for them. The implications hung heavy in the air, Emma's eyes wide as she processed what her father was suggesting. So someone might have hurt her. Sheriff Walker nodded slowly. It's possible, which is why this needs to be handled carefully. Ray, I want you to help me document everything in this box. Photographs, copies of the journal, pages, the works. Then we need to pull the old case files. Deputy Collins nodded. I'll get on it right away. Should we drag the lake? If the box was there, maybe. He trailed off, but his meaning was clear. Sheriff Walker shook his head. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. First, we need to see what's in this journal. Maybe contact the state police about bringing in divers for a proper search. Emma had been flipping through the photographs again, stopping at one that showed Melissa standing in front of her classroom, a bright smile on her face, surrounded by young students. She looked so nice. I wish I could have had her as a teacher. Sheriff Walker's expression softened. She was, by all accounts, a wonderful teacher, passionate about her students, about education. Everyone spoke highly of her, which made her disappearance all the more baffling. No enemies, no problems at work. No financial troubles. Someone must have known something, Emma insisted. People don't just vanish. You'd be surprised how often they do. Deputy Collins muttered, earning a sharp look from the sheriff. Emma, why don't you take Max home now? Your mom will be wondering where you are. I'll be home for dinner, and we can talk more then. Emma reluctantly stood, recognizing the dismissal. Come on, Max. The golden retriever rose, stretching before following her to the door, but at the threshold he stopped, turning back to look at the box on the sheriff's desk, a low whine escaping his throat. That dog knows something, Deputy Collins remarked. Not entirely joking. Maybe he does, Emma replied, patting Max's head. He's the one who found the box after all. After Emma and Max left, Sheriff Walker turned his full attention to the journal, opening it carefully. Let's see what Melissa had to say for herself in the months before she disappeared. The entries began in January of the year Melissa vanished. Typical journal entries about her daily life, her students, her hopes for the future. But as Sheriff Walker carefully turned the pages, he noticed a shift in tone around April entries, becoming shorter, more guarded, references to feeling watched, uncomfortable encounters. Listen to this, Ray, he read aloud from an entry dated May 12th. Saw J.M. at the grocery store today. He cornered me by the produce. Asked again about my concerns, said he wanted to address them. Personally insisted we meet to discuss it. I made excuses, but he's persistent. I don't trust his sudden interest to coincidental. After what I found, Deputy Collins leaned forward. J.M. James Monroe. Sheriff Walker nodded. Seems likely, and look at this, June 3rd. The water samples came back today. My suspicions confirmed. Now I need to decide what to do with this information, who to trust with it. Some battles are too big to fight alone, but staying silent isn't an option either, not with children swimming in that lake every day. Water samples. Deputy Collins frowned. What water samples? Sheriff Walker flipped through more pages, landing on one of the final entries dated July 8th, just 2 weeks before Melissa's disappearance. Meeting Jay tomorrow at the lakeside, bringing all my documentation. Can't put this off any longer. Regardless of the consequences, some things are worth fighting for, even when the fight seems impossible. He closed the journal carefully. Melissa was concerned about something to do with the lake, something serious enough that she was gathering evidence, collecting water samples, and it appears she was planning to confront someone about it, possibly James Monroe, and 2 weeks later she vanished, Deputy Collins said quietly. That can't be coincidence. Sheriff Walker's face hardened with resolve. No, I don't think it is. Ray, pull the old case files and get me everything we have on James Monroe's lakeside development projects from around that time. I want to know what Melissa might have discovered, what she might have been concerned about. You think Monroe had something to do with her disappearance? Deputy Collins asked, lowering his voice, though no one else was in the office. I'm not jumping to conclusions, but this journal gives us something we never had before. Motive, Sheriff. Walker carefully returned the journal to the box. After 10 years, we finally have a new lead, and I intend to follow it wherever it leads. What neither man noticed as they bent over the mysterious box was the shadow that briefly passed by the office window. Someone who had been listening intently to their conversation, someone who now hurried away, pulling out a cell phone to make an urgent call. Long after midnight, Sheriff Walker sat alone in his office, surrounded by stacks of dusty cardboard boxes. The old case files on Melissa Carter's disappearance spread across his desk, yellowing papers. Photographs, interview, transcripts, a timeline that went nowhere, leads that fizzled into dead ends. He rubbed his tired eyes, studying the photograph of Melissa that had been used on missing person posters all those years ago. Had been so vibrant, so alive in that picture, her dark eyes seemingly looking directly at him, as if asking why he hadn't found the answers, why he had let her case grow cold. He'd been a deputy, and not sheriff, handling his first major investigation under Sheriff Brooks, who had since retired to Florida, the case that had haunted his career, the failure that still needled at him during sleepless nights. What happened to you, Melissa? He murmured to the photograph. And why was your journal in the lake? He turned to the copied pages of Melissa's journal, which Deputy Collins had carefully photographed and printed the entries from the final months, revealing a woman increasingly troubled by something she had discovered related to the lake. There were references to water samples, test results, and her growing conflict with someone identified only as J.M. A knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. Deputy Collins entered, carrying 2 cups of coffee. Thought you could use this, he said, placing 1 cup on the desk. Finding anything? Sheriff Walker sighed. Plenty of questions, not many answers. 10 years ago, we interviewed everyone who knew Melissa, her boyfriend Thomas Reed, her fellow teachers, her principal, Calvin Forbes, even James Monroe, who she apparently had some kind of conflict with, but without evidence of foul play, without a body. The case stalled, and now, Collins asked, taking a seat across from him. Now we have her journal with cryptic entries about water samples and concerns about the lake, plus the fact that someone deliberately sealed her personal belongings in a waterproof box and sank it. He took a sip of coffee, grimacing at the bitter taste. It changes the whole complexion of the case. Deputy Collins nodded. I've been looking into James Monroe's activities around that time. Like you asked, his company Monroe Development was in the middle of a major project on the north shore of Watson Lake. Luxury homes with lake access, the cornerstone of his Lakeside Revival initiative. I remember that project. Sheriff Walker frowned. There was controversy, environmental concerns, but the town council approved it anyway. Yes, but here's the interesting part. Construction halted temporarily in July that year, right around when Melissa disappeared. Monroe cited reassessment of environmental impacts as the reason. Work resumed 3 months later, after some modifications to the original plan. Sheriff Walker leaned forward. That timing can't be coincidental. What was Melissa concerned about? Her journal mentions water samples. What if she found something? Contamination, pollution, something that threatened Monroe's development. Enough to make her a threat, enough to silence her? Collins asked, his voice dropping despite the empty station. I don't know yet, Sheriff Walker admitted, but first thing tomorrow I want to speak with Calvin Forbes, Melissa's principal, see what he remembers about her concerns. Then maybe Thomas Reed, her boyfriend at the time. He might know what water samples she was collecting. What about Monroe himself? Sheriff Walker shook his head. Not yet. We need more before approaching him directly. If he is involved, he's had 10 years to cover his tracks. We need to build our case carefully. Across town in the Walker household, Emma sat cross-legged on her bed. Melissa's case spread before her in a different form, printouts of old news, articles about the disappearance that she'd found online, photographs of Melissa she'd downloaded, all illuminated by the glow of her desk lamp. Despite her mother's insistence that she'd go to sleep hours, Agamax lay beside her, occasionally nosing at the papers, as if he too was investigating. Emma had been fascinated by the case ever since learning the identity of the locket's owner, the young teacher who had vanished without a trace, the mystery that had lived in the background of Pinewood Shores for a decade. What did you find, Max? She whispered, scratching behind his ears. What was Melissa trying to tell us? Emma had always been drawn to mysteries, devouring Nancy Drew books and true crime podcasts, much to her mother's dismay, but this was different. This was real, a genuine mystery in her own town, one that she and Max had stumbled upon. Literally, her research had yielded the basic facts. Melissa Carter, 28, had been a beloved 4th-grade teacher at Pinewood Elementary. She disappeared in July 10 years ago. Her car and some personal items missing, leading authorities to initially believe she had left voluntarily, but as time passed with no contact, no financial activity, the case had turned suspicious. Though never officially declared, Hami Sadima stared at Melissa's smiling face in a newspaper photograph taken at a school function. What happened to you? She murmured, echoing her father's words from earlier. And why did Max find your things in the lake now, after all this time? Max whined softly as if in response, his head suddenly lifting, ears perked toward the window. Emma followed his gaze, but saw only darkness. "What is it, boy? You hear something?" The golden retriever jumped off the bed, padding to the window, his tail low nose pressed against the glass. Emma joined him, peering out into the night, but the backyard was still illuminated only by moonlight. No movement, no sound yet. Max remained alert, tense as he had been at the lake. "There's nothing there, Max," she said, but the dog disagreed, growling low in his throat, a sound Emma rarely heard from her normally gentle companion Max. Her bedroom door opened, her mother Karen appearing in the doorway. "Emma, it's nearly 1 in the morning. What are you doing still up? And why is Max growling?" Emma turned from the window. "Sorry, Mom, I was just researching Melissa Carter, the teacher, whose locket we found. Max is acting weird again, like he did at the lake." Karen Walker, a petite woman with Emma's same blonde hair, sighed. "Your father told me about the discovery, but that doesn't explain why you're up past midnight on what is supposed to be your summer vacation, young lady. And what's all this?" She gestured to the papers spread across the bed. "Just stuff I found online about Melissa's disappearance. It's interesting, Mom. A real mystery right here in Pinewood Shores, and Max and I are part of it now." Karen's expression softened. "Emma, honey, I know this seems exciting, but it's also a very sad situation. A young woman went missing, possibly came to harm. It's not a Nancy Drew book, it's real. And it's your father's job to investigate, not yours. But Max found the box. Doesn't that make us involved? Finding evidence and investigating a potential crime are two very different things," Karen said firmly. "Now, put these away and get some sleep. Your father doesn't need you playing detective." Reluctantly, Emma gathered the papers, setting them on her desk. "Fine, but Max really did find something important, didn't he?" Karen nodded. "Yes, he did. And you both did the right thing bringing it to your father. Now it's time to let him do his job." She leaned down to pet Max, who had finally relaxed his vigil at the window. "Good boy, Max, but it's bedtime now for both of you." After Karen left, closing the door behind her, Emma climbed into bed, Max returning to his spot beside her mom's right. She whispered to the dog, "But that doesn't mean we can't keep our eyes open, right? After all, you're the one who found the box. Who knows what else you might find?" Max licked her hand, his warm brown eyes seeming to hold secrets of their own, as Emma drifted off to sleep. Her dreams filled with mysterious boxes hidden beneath dark waters and a young teacher trying desperately to be hard. Next morning, Sheriff Walker arrived at Pinewood Elementary School, a low brick building now quiet during summer break, save for administrative staff and maintenance workers. Preparing for the upcoming school year, he made his way to the principal's office, where Calvin Forbes had served for over 15 years. Forbes, a balding man in his 50s with reading glasses perpetually perched on his nose, looked up in surprise as Sheriff Walker entered. "David, to what do I owe the pleasure?" "Bit early for truancy issues. School doesn't start for another month." Sheriff Walker didn't return the principal's smile. "Calvin, I'm here about Melissa Carter." The change in Forbes's expression was immediate, the jovial demeanor replaced by a guarded wariness. "Melissa, that was years ago. What brings her up now?" "New evidence has come to light," Sheriff Walker said, taking a seat across from Forbes's desk. "Evidence that suggests her disappearance might not have been voluntary." Forbes removed his glasses, rubbing the bridge of his nose. "What kind of evidence?" "I'm not at liberty to share the details of an ongoing investigation, but I need to ask you some questions about Melissa's state of mind in the months before she disappeared, particularly regarding any concerns she might have had about Watson Lake." "Watson Lake?" Forbes frowned. "I don't recall her mentioning anything specific about the lake, though. It's been 10 years, memories fade. She never spoke to you about water quality, environmental concerns, anything related to James Monroe's development project?" Forbes shifted in his chair, his discomfort evident. "Melissa, I was passionate about many causes, environmental issues among them, but I don't recall any specific conflict regarding the lake or Monroe's development." "Why would that be relevant to her disappearance?" Sheriff Walker leaned forward. "That's what I'm trying to determine, Calvin. Did Melissa ever mention collecting water samples, conducting tests?" Word spread through Pinewood Shores with the efficiency of a small-town telegraph by mid-afternoon. The discovery at Watson Lake was the only topic of conversation at the diner, the hardware store, the salon. Melissa Carter's name spoken in hushed tones, theories exchanged over coffee counters and garden fences, speculation growing with each Lingama noticed the change immediately when she took Max for his afternoon walk. People staring, whispering as they passed, neighbors suddenly eager to chat, asking casual questions about what exactly she had found in the lake. She kept her answers vague, following her father's instructions not to discuss details, but the attention was both exciting and unnerving. "Guess we're famous now, Max," she murmured as they walked along Main Street, the golden retriever trotting beside her, seeming oblivious to their newfound celebrity. Past Monroe Plaza, the 3-story office building that dominated the town center, its glass front reflecting the summer sky, James Monroe's name displayed Prominently above the entrance, as Emma glanced at the building, she noticed a tall, silver-haired man watching her from the steps, his expression unreadable. Even from a distance she recognized him from photographs. James Monroe himself, the wealthy developer who owned half the commercial property in Pinewood Shores. Max stopped abruptly, his body stiffening, a low growl rumbling in his chest as he stared at Monroe. "Max, what's wrong?" Emma tugged gently on his leash, but the dog stood firm, his eyes fixed on the man, his hackles rising. Monroe maintained eye contact for a long moment before turning and disappearing into the building. Emma felt a chill despite the summer heat. "Come on, boy, let's go," she urged, pulling Max away from the plaza. The dog reluctantly following, though he continued, glancing back his usual happy demeanor, notably absent. He continued toward the lakeside park, where children played on swings and slides, families enjoying picnics under shade trees, the idyllic scene, a stark contrast to the mystery that now swirled around the placid waters of Watson Lake. Emma found a bench with a view of the water, Max settling at her feet, though he remained unusually alert. "Emma, Walker right, the girl who found the box." Emma looked up to see a girl about her own age standing beside the bench, dark-haired with serious eyes. Yes, that's me. I'm Lily Morgan," the girl said, sitting down uninvited. "My mom was Melissa Carter's best friend." Emma straightened with interest. "Really? Did you know her?" Lily shook her head. "I was only 2 when she disappeared, same as you, but my mom never stopped talking about her. They taught at the same school. Melissa was her daughter's godmother. That's my older sister, Jasmine." "What does your mom think happened to her?" Emma asked, unable to contain her curiosity. Glanced around before answering, her voice dropping. "Mom always said Melissa didn't just leave, that something bad happened to her. She said Melissa was worried about something in the weeks before she disappeared, something to do with the lake." Emma leaned closer. "The lake? Do you know what specifically?" "Not exactly. Mom doesn't talk about it much anymore. It makes her too sad, but she kept all these newspaper clippings about the case in a box in her closet. I looked through them once when she wasn't home." Lily admitted Melissa was collecting water samples, testing them. "She told my mom she'd found something concerning. Did she'll tell your mom what she found?" Lily shook her head. "If she did, Mom never said, but she always gets weird whenever Mr. Monroe's name comes up, changes the subject or finds a reason to leave the room." "Monroe?" Emma's eyes widened, remembering the silver-haired man who had been watching her, the rich guy who owns all those buildings downtown. "Yeah, he was developing those fancy houses on the North Shore when Melissa disappeared," Lily confirmed. "My mom says his company has always done whatever they want in this town because they employ so many people and donate to everything: the school, the hospital, the annual festival." Max suddenly lifted his head, alert, his attention focused across the park. Emma followed his gaze, spotting her father's patrol car pulling into the parking lot. "That's my dad. I should go talk to him." Lily nodded, standing. "Be careful, Emma. My mom says some secrets in this town go very deep." With that cryptic warning, she walked away, disappearing among the playground equipment. Sharif Walker approached, looking tired, but managing a smile when he saw Emma. "Hey kiddo, enjoying the park?" "Dad, everyone's talking about the box and Melissa Monroe was watching me from his building." And Max growled at him. "And I just met a girl whose mom was Melissa's best friend, and she said Melissa was worried about something to do with the lake before she disappeared." Emma blurted out in a rush. "Sharif?" Walker held up a hand. "Slow down, Emma, one thing at a time. James Monroe was watching you?" Emma nodded. "When we walked past his building, he was standing on the steps, staring at us. Max didn't like him at all, started growling, which he never does." Her father frowned. "Stay away from Monroe, Emma. Don't engage with him if you see him again, understand?" "Why do you think he had something to do with Melissa's disappearance?" Sheriff Walker sighed. "I don't know yet, honey. I'm just following leads, but until I have a clearer picture, I want you to be careful now." "Who's this girl you met?" "Lily Morgan. Her mom taught with Melissa. They were best friends, she says. Her mom always believed something bad happened to Melissa, something connected to the lake." "Catherine Morgan?" Sheriff Walker nodded. "I interviewed her. Back then, she was adamant Melissa wouldn't have left voluntarily, but without evidence." He shrugged. "Maybe it's time I spoke with her again." Max suddenly stood, his attention fixed on the lake, his posture tense, alert. Emma recognized the stance, the same one he'd adopted before finding the metal box. "Dad, look at Max." Sheriff Walker followed her gaze. "What's he doing?" "It's the same way he acted yesterday before he found the box. I think he senses something." Max took a few steps toward the water, stopping to look back at them as if asking them to follow. "Dad, I think he wants to show us something else." Sheriff Walker hesitated. "Emma, this isn't a game. Max is a dog, not a detective, but he found the box." Emma insisted, "and now he's acting the same way. What if there's more evidence? What if Melissa left more than one box?" After a moment's consideration, Sheriff Walker nodded. "All right, let's see what he's got, but stay close to me." They followed Max as he led them along the shoreline past the public beach to a less frequented area where reeds grew thick at the water's edge. The dog moved with purpose, his nose occasionally touching the ground, then lifting to the air, as if following an invisible trail. "Max knows something," Emma whispered, her excitement building. "He's tracking Sheriff Walker. Remain skeptical or he smells a fish." Max stopped at the water's edge, staring intently at a spot about 20 feet offshore, where a concrete drainage pipe extended from the bank partially. Submerged, he barked once, twice his meaning clear to Emma. At least he wants us to look there in the water by the pipe. Sheriff Walker studied the area. That's the old storm drainage system, runs from the North Shore. Development originally installed. When Monroe began construction, it's supposed to prevent runoff from affecting the lake. Can we check it out? Emma pleaded. Not now, Emma. That area's too deep to wade safely. I'd need proper equipment. Maybe divers. He pulled out his phone, snapping several photographs of the location. I'll note it as an area of interest, but this requires proper procedure. Max Wind, clearly disappointed by their lack of action. Good boy, Sheriff Walker said, patting the dog's head. You've done your part now. Let the professionals handle it. As they walked back toward the park, Emma spotted Lily watching them from the swing set, the girl's expression solemn beyond her years. Across the lake on the opposite shore, a black luxury sedan was parked, its occupant obscured by tinted windows. Emma pointed it out to her father. Someone's watching us. Sheriff Walker narrowed his eyes at the distant vehicle. Probably just someone enjoying the view, Emma. Not everything is connected to the case. But as they reached the parking lot, the sedan's engine started, the car pulling away with deliberate slowness. Still think it's nothing? Emma asked. Her father didn't answer, his expression troubled as he opened the car door. I'll drop you and Max home then. I need to get back to the station. Stay there, Emma. No more investigating on your own, understand? But Dad, no buts, Emma. This isn't a game or one of your mystery books. This is a real investigation, possibly involving serious crimes. I need you safe and out of the way. Promise me you'll stay home. Reluctantly, Emma nodded. I promise. As Sheriff Walker drove them home, Emma stared out the window at Watson Lake, its surface peaceful, beautiful, hiding whatever secrets lay beneath. She thought about Melissa Carter, the young teacher who had loved her students, who had worn a silver locket, who had discovered something important enough to document in a journal, something that might have cost her her life. Side her, Max sat alert, watching the lake as intently as she was, his canine instincts perhaps sensing what human eyes could not, the truth that had remained submerged for 10 long years, a truth that was finally rising to the surface. Morning light filtered through the blinds of Sheriff Walker's office as he stared at the evidence board he'd assembled. Overnight photographs of Melissa Carter, the metal box, its contents, the timeline of her disappearance, and now new elements added. As the investigation reawakened, photographs of Watson Lake, the drainage pipe. Max had identified James Monroe's Lakeside Development Project newspaper clippings about environmental protests that had briefly delayed construction 10 years ago. Collins entered, carrying 2 cups of coffee. Any progress? Sheriff Walker accepted the coffee gratefully. I spoke with Catherine Morgan last night, Melissa's friend and fellow teacher. She confirmed Melissa was concerned about water quality in the lake, specifically near Monroe's development. She was collecting samples, having them tested at a lab in the city. Did Morgan know what the tests showed? Not specifically, just that Melissa was upset about the results, said she had evidence of something that could stop the development. She was planning to confront Monroe directly. Sheriff Walker sipped his coffee. But here's the interesting part. According to Morgan, Melissa had a meeting scheduled with Monroe the day before she disappeared. Collins raised his eyebrows. That's significant. Did Morgan know what happened at the meeting? No, Melissa never told her the outcome, but Morgan remembered she seemed agitated afterward. Said she was going back to the lake to document everything. Those were her words. The phone on Sheriff Walker's desk rang, interrupting their conversation. Walker here, he answered, his expression changing as he listened. Yes, we'll be right there. He hung up, turning to Collins. That was the state police there, sending a dive team to help search the lake, specifically the area around that drainage pipe. Max identified they can be here by noon. You think there might be more evidence there? Or a Collins left the implication unspoken. I don't know, Ray, but Max led us there for a reason, and that drainage pipe connects directly to Monroe's development, the same development. Melissa had concerns about the timings, too coincidental to ignore. By mid-morning, a small crowd had gathered at Watson Lake, word of the dive team's imminent arrival spreading through town with predictable speed. Sheriff Walker had cordoned off the area with police tape, but curious onlookers still lined the shore. At a distance, watching as he and Deputy Collins examined the drainage pipe from the bank, Emma had begged to come along, bringing Max of course, and after much discussion Sheriff Walker had reluctantly agreed on the condition she stay well back from the water. He found the box. Dad, he might notice something we missed. Now Emma and Max waited near the patrol car, the Golden Retriever, unusually focused on the water, the crowd around them growing as more townspeople arrived, drawn by curiosity and the promise of drama in their otherwise quiet community. Quite the excitement your dog has caused. Emma turned to find James Monroe himself standing beside her, his silver hair immaculate, his casual clothing somehow still managing to look expensive. Max immediately tensed, a low growl rumbling in his throat. Mr. Monroe? Emma acknowledged, trying to keep her voice steady, remembering her father's warning to avoid engaging with him. Smart dog you have there, Monroe, continued his voice. Pleasant though. His eyes remained cold, finding that old box quite the coincidence after all these years. I don't think it was a coincidence, Emma replied, unable to help herself. Max knows things. Monroe smiled, though the expression didn't reach his eyes. Dogs do have remarkable instincts, though they can sometimes lead us astray, jumping at shadows, seeing threats where none exist. Before Emma could respond, Sheriff Walker appeared beside them, his expression hardening at the sight of Monroe. James, this is an active investigation area. I'll have to ask you to step back. Monroe raised his hands in a placating gesture. Just making conversation with the young detective and her clever dog, no harm intended. He turned to leave, pausing to add good luck. With your search, David, though, I doubt you'll find anything of significance. All these years later, memories can play tricks on us, make us see connections that don't exist. As Monroe walked away, melting into the crowd, Sheriff Walker turned to Emma. What did he say to you? Nothing really, just that it was a coincidence. Max found the box, Emma replied. But Dad, Max really didn't like him, growled the whole time. Sheriff Walker nodded. Stay away from Monroe. Emma, he's not someone you want to engage with right now because you think he had something to do with Melissa's disappearance. Her father sighed. I don't know yet, but his development project seems connected to Melissa's concerns about the lake. And now we have her journal with entries about confronting someone with the initials J.M. It's circumstantial, but enough to make him a person of interest. At that moment, a convoy of vehicles arrived, state police and a dive team in wetsuit, unloading equipment as Deputy Collins directed them to the site. Stay here with Max, Sheriff Walker instructed Emma, moving to meet the dive team leader, a tall woman with a no-nonsense demeanor, who introduced herself as Sergeant Rivera. So you have reason to believe there might be evidence related to a decade-old disappearance in this lake? Rivera asked, scanning the water with professional assessment. Sheriff Walker explained the discovery of the metal box, Melissa's journal entries, Max's apparent detection of something near the drainage pipe. It's unconventional, I know, following a dog's lead, but given what we've found already, I believe it warrants investigation. Rivera nodded. We've worked with canine units before. Dogs have instincts we don't understand. I've seen cadaver dogs find remains buried for decades at surprising depths. Water searches are trickier, but not impossible. We'll focus on the area around that drainage pipe, see what we can find. As the dive team prepared, Emma spotted Lily Morgan making her way through the crowd to join her. Is it true? Lily asked. Breathlessly, they're looking for Melissa's body. Emma shushed her. We don't know what they're looking for. Maybe more evidence like the box. My mom's freaking out. Lily confided she's been crying since she heard about the search, says it's finally happening after all these years. Justice for Melissa. What does your mom think happened to her? Lily lowered her voice. She thinks Mr. Monroe was responsible, that Melissa found something in the water that would have stopped his development. Something illegal, and he silenced her. Emma's eyes widened. Has she told my dad this? Last night when he came to interview her, she told him everything she's suspected for years but couldn't prove. Lily glanced toward Monroe, who stood at the edge of the crowd watching the proceedings with apparent calm. Mom says he's always been untouchable in this town. Too much money, too much influence. Max suddenly barked, drawing their attention. The dog staring intently at the water where divers were now entering the lake, their black wetsuits stark against the green water. He knows something, Emma whispered, just like before. The crowd fell silent as the divers disappeared beneath the surface, minutes stretching with agonizing slowness. Sheriff Walker pacing the shoreline, Deputy Collins taking photographs, documenting everything. Emma held Max's collar, the dog trembling with tension beneath her fingers. Then one of the divers surfaced, waving an arm signaling a discovery. They found something. The whisper rippled through the crowd. A second diver emerged, both swimming toward shore, carrying something between them as they reached the shallows. Sheriff Walker waded out to meet them, Emma straining to see what they had recovered. It wasn't another box, but something larger, a section of weathered metal, twisted and corroded, the purpose not immediately clear from Emma's vantage point. Sheriff Walker and Sergeant Rivera conferred over the object, their expressions grave. What is it? Emma asked Lily, both girls standing on tiptoes trying to see. I don't know, Lily replied, but look at your dad's face. It's something important. Indeed, Sheriff Walker's expression had changed from professional focus to something darker as he directed the evidence technicians to photograph and bag the mysterious object. Deputy Collins, keeping the increasingly curious crowd at bay. Emma couldn't contain herself any longer, slipping through the police tape with Max at her heels. Dad, what did they find? Sheriff Walker turned, surprise and disapproval crossing his face. Emma, I told you to stay back, please. Dad, what is it? After a moment's hesitation, he beckoned her closer, lowering his voice. It appears to be part of a car license plate frame, partially crushed and corroded from years underwater but still recognizable. A license plate from Melissa's car. Emma asked, her heart rushing. Sheriff Walker nodded. Possibly, it matches the make and model. She drove a Honda Civic. If confirmed, this could be the first physical evidence we've found of her vehicle, which was never recovered. Max wind, pulling toward the water again, his body language insistent. He still senses something, Dad. Emma said, there's more down there. Sheriff Walker studied the dog, then signaled to Sergeant Rivera. My daughter's dog is indicating there might be more. He's the one who found the initial evidence. Rivera raised an eyebrow but nodded to her team. Check a wider perimeter around the initial recovery site. Focus on the area the dog is alerting to the divers. Return to the water. Max watching their bubbles with intense focus as they searched the murky depths, the crowd on shore growing as word spread more. Discoveries might be imminent. Asterisk. Dawn broke over Watson Lake, painting the water in shades of gold and pink, a beautiful scene that belied the grim work about to take place. The recovery team had arrived before first light, setting up equipment along the shoreline. Powerful lights illuminating the work area, as divers prepared to raise the submerged. Klima had insisted on being present, despite her mother's objections. Max found it. Mom, we should be there. Reluctantly, Karen had agreed, allowing Emma to accompany her father, on the condition she stay well back from the operation. Max, as always at her city lakeside, was eerily quiet. The usual morning joggers and dog walkers kept at bay by police barricades. The only sounds, the low hum of equipment and the occasional splash as divers entered the water. Sheriff Walker stood with Sergeant Rivera reviewing the recovery plan, their breath visible in the cool morning air. Once we attach the lift bags and inflate them, the vehicle should rise slowly, Rivera explained. The challenge will be preserving any evidence the car's been underwater for a decade. Silt mud, decomposition all complicate matters. Sheriff Walker nodded. We need to treat this as a potential crime scene. Every detail matters. Emma and Max watched. From their designated spot, a bench near the parking lot, the golden retriever, unusually subdued as if sensing the solemnity of the occasion, Emma scratched behind his ears. You did good, boy. You found her. He's quite the detective, that dog of yours. Emma turned to find an elderly woman she didn't recognize standing nearby, a thick cardigan wrapped around her thin frame, despite the summer morning. I'm sorry, do I know you? The woman smiled. No, dear, we haven't met. I'm Eleanor Green. I live in that cottage just up the hill. She pointed to a small house overlooking the lake. I've been watching all the commotion these past few days. Thought I should finally come down and see. For myself, Emma nodded politely, unsure why the woman was speaking. To her, I've lived on this lake for 40 years, Eleanor continued, settling herself on the bench, uninvited, seen a lot of changes, most of them not for the better in my opinion. That Monroe development was the worst of it, destroying the natural shoreline, putting in those concrete drainage pipes. Did you know Melissa Carter? Emma asked, her curiosity piqued. Eleanor's expression softened. Not well. She would jog past my cottage, sometimes wave hello. Seemed like a lovely young woman. I remember seeing her taking water samples. Sometimes, she explained, she was doing a project with her students, teaching them about ecology. Water samples. Emma leaned forward near the drainage pipes. Eleanor nodded. Yes, she seemed particularly interested in that area, said the water didn't look right. There are strange films sometimes. Unusual algae growth, concerns about what might be coming through those pipes. Emma's mind raced, making connections. Did you ever see her talking to anyone at the lake? Maybe arguing with someone? Eleanor hesitated, her eyes darting toward the recovery operation before returning to Emma. I don't like to get involved in things that aren't my business. Please, Mrs. Green, Emma pressed. If you saw something, it could be important. My dad's the sheriff. He's trying to find out what happened to Melissa. The elderly woman sighed deeply. The night before they reported her missing, I was sitting on my porch. It was a warm evening like this time of year. I couldn't sleep. I saw Melissa's car parked down by the lake. She was standing near the water with a man. They seemed to be arguing, though I couldn't hear what about. Emma's heart raced. What man? Could you see who it was? It was dark, dear, but the moon was bright enough. I recognized James Monroe. His silver hair catches the light. Even at night he was gesturing angrily, pointing at something. Melissa was holding papers or a folder. Maybe. She kept shaking her head. Then he grabbed her arm. That's when I stood up, considering whether to intervene, but they separated. He walked away toward his car. She stayed by the lake. That was the last time I saw her. Did you tell the police this back then? Emma asked, hardly believing what she was hearing. No, dear, I didn't. I told myself it was probably nothing, just a disagreement. And when she was reported missing, well, James Monroe is a powerful man in this town, owns the company that manages my retirement community. I was afraid what might happen if I spoke up, might lose my home. But you're telling me now? The elderly woman nodded toward the lake where the recovery operation was intensifying. Some secrets are too heavy to carry forever, especially when the truth seems determined to surface on its own. Emma jumped to her feet. You need to tell my dad this right away. It's important evidence. Eleanor nodded slowly. Yes, I suppose it's finally time. She rose with effort. Would you take me to him? My legs aren't what they used to be. Emma led the elderly woman toward the police line, Max following closely, his demeanor alert as if understanding the significance of Eleanor's revelation. Sheriff Walker looked up in surprise as they approached. Dad, this is Mrs. Green. She lives in that cottage overlooking the lake, and she saw something the night Melissa disappeared. Something important. Within minutes, Eleanor was seated in Sheriff Walker's patrol car giving a formal statement, Deputy Collins taking detailed notes as she recounted what she had witnessed that night 10 years ago. The argument between Melissa and James Monroe, the last known sighting of the young teacher. Olivia waited outside with Max, watching the lake where divers were now attaching large orange lift bags to what must be the submerged vehicle. Their work methodical, precise. A small crowd had begun to gather despite the early early hour word spreading quickly through town that Melissa Carter's car was being recovered. What's happening? Lily appeared beside Emma, her face flushed from running. Mom got a call that they're bringing up a car. Emma nodded, pointing to the activity in the water. They found it yesterday near the drainage. Pipe Max kept alerting too, and Mrs. Green, that elderly lady in my dad's car. She saw Melissa arguing with James Monroe the night she disappeared. Right here at the lake? Lily's eyes widened seriously. Is she telling your dad? Giving a statement right now? Emma confirmed she was afraid to come forward before. Because Monroe has so much power in town, the girls watched as the recovery team signaled readiness. The divers surfacing as the lift bags began to inflate, slowly bringing their burden toward the surface, the water bulging as something large rose. From the depths, there it is, Lily whispered as the roof of a car emerged, algae covered, mud-stained but unmistakably. A vehicle inch by inch the car rose, revealing itself a small sedan, its original color difficult to determine under years of silt. An algae growth, a Honda Civic, just as Sheriff Walker had suspected, the license plate still attached, though barely legibly. Hush fell over the gathered onlookers as the car was carefully guided toward shore, winches and cables taking over from the lift bags to pull it onto the prepared recovery platform, water streaming from the windows, the trunk, the wheel. While Sheriff Walker emerged from his patrol car, Eleanor Green's statement apparently complete, his expression grim as he approached the recovered vehicle, Sergeant Rivera beside him, both donning gloves before attempting to open the driver's side door. Door resisted, then yielded with a sickening sucking sound, releasing a surge of muddy water and the unmistakable smell of decay. Even at a distance, Emma could sense the change in the atmosphere, the tension that gripped the recovery team as they peered into the vehicle's interior. Deputy Collins quickly expanded the perimeter, pushing onlookers further back, setting up privacy screens around the car, but not before Emma caught a glimpse of what had caused the sudden shift in mood. Something inside the vehicle, something that confirmed their worst fears. They found her, didn't they? Lily whispered, her face pale. Melissa was in the car. Emma couldn't answer, her throat tight with emotion. Max pressed against her leg, whining softly as if sharing her distress. Across the expanded perimeter, she could see her father, speaking urgently into his radio, his face set in lines of determination and grief. The mood around the lake transformed in an instant from curiosity to horror. The reality sinking in. What had been a missing persons case, a mystery, was now unquestionably a homicide. Someone had put Melissa Carter's car in Watson Lake with Melissa still inside. Someone had killed her and concealed the evidence for 10 long years. Emma? She turned to find her father standing behind her, his expression somber. I need you to go home now with your mother. He gestured to Karen, who had just arrived, clearly summoned by Sheriff Walker. This isn't something you should be here for. You found her? Emma asked, though she already knew the answer. Sheriff Walker nodded once. Yes, preliminary identification suggests it's Melissa. We'll need forensic confirmation, but the clothing, jewelry, physical description, all match. It was murder, wasn't it? Her father hesitated, then answered with the honesty he had always shown her. Yes, Emma, all indications point to homicide. We'll know more after the medical examiner's examination, but this was no accident. Karen placed an arm around Emma's shoulders. Come on, honey, your father needs to work. We should go. But Dad, Mrs. Green's statement about seeing Monroe arguing with Melissa the night she disappeared, that's important evidence, right? Sheriff Walker's expression hardened. Very important, combined with Melissa's journal entries, the water sample concerns, and now the recovery of her vehicle. We have enough to bring James Monroe in for formal questioning. News of Melissa Carter's recovered car and the remains found inside spread through Pinewood Shores like wildfire. By afternoon yellow, crime scene tape surrounded the lakefront. State police vehicles lined the parking area, and television news vans from the nearest city had arrived, their satellite dishes raised toward the sky. Emma watched the coverage from home, her mother insisting she stay away from the investigation, though Emma's thoughts remained fixed on Watson Lake and the secrets it had finally revealed. They're saying it's definitely Melissa. Lily texted, accompanied by a Newslink forensic team, confirmed her identity through dental records and the necklace found with her remains. Emma clicked the link, reading the clinical details with a mixture of fascination and horror. According to the preliminary report, Melissa Carter had not drowned. Her skull showed evidence of blunt force trauma. She had been killed before her car entered the lake, a deliberate act of concealment. Following a deliberate act of violence, is your dad going to arrest Monroe? Lily's next text asked. Not sure, Emma replied. He hasn't been home since they found the car. Indeed, Sheriff Walker had been working non-stop, coordinating with state police, examining evidence, interviewing witnesses. His brief phone calls home revealing little except that the case was progressing rapidly. The investigation now centered on James Monroe, though no formal charges had yet been filed. Max lay beside Emma on the couch, unusually subdued since their departure from the lake. As if sensing the gravity of what he had helped uncover, she scratched behind his ears. You're a hero, you know that. You found Melissa when no one else could? The doorbell rang, startling. Then both Karen appeared from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a dish towel. Stay here, Emma, she instructed, moving to answer the door voices in the entryway. Then Karen returned, Emma, there's someone here to see you. A man named Thomas Reed, says he. Knew Melissa Carter? Emma sat up in surprise. Melissa's boyfriend? The one from when she disappeared. Karen nodded. He says he read about Max finding the evidence, wants to thank you himself. Emma hesitated, curious but cautious. Is it okay? I'll be right in the next room, Karen assured her call. If you need me. Thomas Reed entered the living room. A man in his early 40s with kind eyes and premature gray at his temples, he smiled at Emma, though the expression held sadness. You must be Emma, the sheriff's daughter, and this must be Max. The hero of the hour. Max studied the visitor briefly before deciding he posed no threat. Relaxing back onto the couch, as Emma nodded, yes sir, that's us though. Max did all the real work. Thomas sat in the armchair across from them. I wanted to thank you both. Melissa was important to me, still is. Even after all these years when she disappeared, it was like a light went out in Pinewood Shores. I never believed she just left town. Not without saying goodbye, not without her car. Did you know she was worried about something to do with the lake? Emma asked, unable to contain her curiosity before she disappeared. Thomas nodded. She was passionate about environmental protection, especially Watson Lake. She grew up swimming there like most kids in town. When Monroe Development began their lakeside project, she noticed changes in the water quality, started testing it herself. She was concerned about what was draining into the lake through those pipes. Did she tell you what she found? Not specifically, just that the tests showed chemical contamination consistent with construction runoff, but at levels far exceeding legal limits. She was gathering evidence, planning to file a formal complaint with the Environmental Protection Agency. He sighed heavily. The last time I saw her, she was preparing for a meeting with James Monroe, hoping to convince him to address the issues voluntarily before she went to the authorities. That must have been the meeting Mrs. Green witnessed, Emma said, thinking aloud. The argument at the lake, the night Melissa disappeared. Thomas looked up sharply. Someone saw them together that night. Emma nodded, explaining about Eleanor Green, the elderly woman who had finally come forward with her eyewitness account of the argument between Melissa and Monroe. That's a breakthrough, Thomas said, his voice tight with emotion. 10 years I've waited for answers, 10 years wondering what happened that night. Why are you telling me all this? Emma asked. Shouldn't you be talking to my dad? Thomas smiled sadly. I already have many times over the years. Your father was always the only officer who seemed to truly believe something had happened. To Melissa, the others were quick to accept she'd simply left town, but Sheriff Walker, he kept looking even when the case went cold. He leaned forward. I wanted to meet the girl and the dog who accomplished what a decade of searching couldn't, who finally brought Melissa home. The front door opened, Sheriff Walker entering, looking exhausted, his uniform rumpled, his eyes shadowed from lack of sleep. He stopped short, seeing Thomas. Tom, I didn't expect to find you here. Thomas stood. David, I was just thanking your daughter and her remarkable dog for what they've done. Sheriff Walker nodded, moving to kiss Emma's forehead before sinking into the couch beside her. It's been a long day. Did you arrest Mr. Monroe? Emma asked, unable to contain the question. Her father sighed. Not yet, Emma. These things take time building a case, especially against someone with Monroe's resources. We need to be methodical, but we have executed search warrants for his home, his office, his vehicles. Forensic teams are processing everything as we speak. He's going to get away with it, isn't he? Thomas asked, bitterness creeping into his voice. Just like he gets away with everything in this town. Sheriff Walker's expression hardened. Not this time, Tom. I promise you Melissa will have justice. We have Eleanor Green's eyewitness testimony, the journal entries, the physical evidence from the lake, and now the medical examiner's preliminary report confirming homicide. The noose is tightening. A noise from the kitchen interrupted them. Karen, appearing with a tray of coffee. You look like you could use this, she said, setting it down. All of you. As the adults sipped their coffee, Emma slipped away to her room, Max following. She closed the door, sitting cross-legged on her bed as she opened her laptop. Let's see what else we can find, boy. She had been researching Monroe Development for days, combing through newspaper archives, online records, anything that might connect to Melissa's concerns about the lake. Opening a folder of saved articles, she reread one from 11 years ago, announcing the Lakeside Estates project, Monroe's ambitious plan for luxury homes along Watson Lake's North Shore, with quotes from James Monroe himself, promising responsible development with minimal environmental impact. Another article from a few months later mentioned briefly that construction had been temporarily halted due to permit reassessment before resuming with a modified design that included the drainage system Max had identified as significantuma. Searched deeper, finding environmental impact reports for the project, heavily redacted versions available in public records, most concerning the drainage system designed to mitigate construction runoff. But Emma noticed something odd in the timing. The drainage system had been added to the plans after initial approval, as if in response to specific concerns. What if Melissa found something in the water that wasn't supposed to be there? She whispered to Max, something Monroe was trying to hide with that drainage system. Her phone buzzed with a text from Lily. Oh my God, you need to see this. followed by a link to a social media post from a local environmental group, Pinewood Watershed. Clicking the link, Emma found a scanned document labeled Water Quality Analysis, Watson Lake, North Shore. Dated just weeks before Melissa's disappearance, the report showed elevated levels of numerous industrial chemicals, including some marked in red with warnings about toxicity and regulatory violations. Handwritten notes in the margin read confirm sources and compare to legal limits, followed by Melissa's initials MC. Emma single quotes as she read the accompanying post. This report, recently discovered in our archives, was submitted anonymously 10 years ago, but never acted upon in light of recent developments at Watson Lake. We are making it public now. #Justice for Melissa. She immediately texted Lily back. Where did they get this? Mom found it in a folder of Melissa's things she kept all these years, Lily replied. She gave it to the Watershed Alliance. Today says she was too scared before, but not anymore. Emma downloaded the report studying the chemical analysis, though much of it was beyond her understanding. The highlighted sections made it clear. The contamination was significant, dangerous, and definitely illegal. She was about to call her father when Max suddenly lifted his head, ears alert, a low growl rumbling in his throat. What is it, boy? Emma moved to the window following the dog's gaze. Car was parked across the street, a black sedan with tinted windows, similar to the one they had seen watching them. At the lake, as Emma watched, a figure emerged from the driver's side, tall, silver-haired, unmistakably James Monroe himself, standing in the twilight staring directly at the walker. Hamima grabbed her phone quickly, texting her father in the living room. Monroe is outside watching our house right now. Seconds later, she heard rapid movement downstairs, the front door opening, her father's voice calling out sharply, James, what are you doing here? Emma cracked her bedroom window to hear the exchange. Max still growling beside her, just driving by. David? Monroe's voice carried in the evening air, deceptively casual, thinking about how quickly a town can turn on someone based on circumstantial evidence and decade-old grudges. The Walker house remained on high alert following Monroe's threatening appearance. Sheriff Walker arranging for a deputy to park outside overnight, just a precaution, he assured Emma and Karen, though the tension in his voice betrayed deeper concerns. At breakfast the next morning, he looked exhausted, having spent much of the night on the phone with state police and the district attorney's office. Dad, are you okay? Emma asked, pushing her cereal around the bowl, Max lying vigilant at her feet. Walker managed to smile. I'm fine, kiddo. Just a lot happening very quickly. I'll be heading to the station. Soon we're bringing Monroe in for formal questioning today because of what Mrs. Green saw. He nodded. Her statement was crucial, and now we have the water quality report Lily's mother provided gives us motive. Melissa was preparing to file environmental violations against Monroe Development that could have cost him millions in fines, project delays, possibly even criminal charges. So, he killed her to keep her quiet, Emma said, the blunt statement hanging in the air. Her father didn't contradict her. The evidence is pointing that way, Emma, though we still need to build a solid case. Prosecutor wants everything airtight before filing charges. Monroe has expensive lawyers and a lot of influence. Karen placed a hand on her husband's shoulder. Be careful today. David Monroe seemed desperate. Last night, desperate people do desperate things. I'll be fine, he assured her, rising from the table. Emma, stay home today, please. No adventures with Max. I need to know you're safe. After her father left, Emma tried to distract herself with television, video games, books, but her mind kept returning to Watson Lake, to Melissa Carter, to the evidence Max had discovered. Unable to sit still, she finally convinced her mother to let her take Max for a short walk. Just around the block, Mom. I promise we won't go near the lake. The summer morning was bright, birds singing in the maple trees that lined their street, a normal, peaceful day that felt strangely disconnected from the drama unfolding in their small town. Emma and Max had just rounded the corner when Lily appeared on her bicycle, breathless with excitement. Emma, there you are. You need to see this. She thrust her phone forward, displaying a news article. They just published it online. Monroe's being questioned right now at the police station. There's a crowd gathering. Emma scanned the article, which confirmed her father was interviewing James Monroe in the presence of Monroe's attorney. The questioning focused on Melissa Carter's death and the environmental report she had been preparing to file. The noose is tightening, she murmured. That's not all, Lily continued. Mom found something else in her old files, a USB drive Melissa gave her for safekeeping. Days before she disappeared, she never knew what was on it, was too afraid to look after. Melissa vanished, but she gave it to your dad. This morning, a USB drive. With what on it? Lily shrugged. Don't know yet, but Mom says Melissa told her it contained everything needed to prove what's happening at the lake. Your dad's tech people are trying to access it now. After all these years, Max suddenly tensed beside Emma, a low growl emerging from his throat. Both girls looked up to see Principal Forbes hurrying down the sidewalk toward them, his normally neat appearance, disheveled sweat staining his shirt despite the mild morning. Emma, there you are, he called, his voice unnaturally high. I've been looking for you. Your father asked me to bring you to the station right away. Something about additional questions regarding your discovery at the lake. Emma frowned, something feeling off about the principal's manner. Max clearly agreed, his growl deepening, stance widening protectively. My dad would have called me or my mom if he needed me. Forbes waved dismissively. He tried your home line. No answer, must have just missed you, please. It's urgent. He reached for Emma's arm, but Max intervened, placing himself between them, teeth barely backed. Away slightly, Emma. I don't think it's fine, Lily, Emma interrupted, understanding the danger. Mr. Forbes, why don't you call my dad right now? Let me speak. To him, Forbes hesitated. There's no time, we need to go now, his voice hardening as he reached into his pocket. Call off your dog, Emma. This isn't a game. Max lunged forward, barking fiercely, causing Forbes to stumble backward, revealing what he had been reaching for, not a phone, but something that glinted in the sunlight, a small pocket knife run. Emma shouted, grabbing Lily's bike, both girls scrambling. Onto it, Max, keeping Forbes at bay with continuous barking and lunging as they pedaled away frantically. What's happening? Lily gasped as they rounded the corner, Emma pedaling, standing up while Lily balanced on the seat. Why did Forbes have a knife? I don't know, Emma panted, but he's involved somehow with Monroe. The way Max reacted. She pulled out her phone, dialing her father's number, but it went straight to voicemail. He must be in the interview still. We need to get to the police station. Lily insisted. Tell someone what happened. They pedaled through town toward the small brick building that housed the Pinewood Shores Police Department. A crowd had indeed gathered outside, news crews filming as curious townspeople watched the drama unfold. Emma spotted Deputy Collins at the perimeter maintaining order. Deputy Collins, she called, abandoning the bike and running toward him, Max at her heels. It's Principal Forbes. He just tried to grab me, had a knife. Collins's expression shifted from confusion to alarm. Slow down, Emma. What happened exactly? Emma quickly explained. The encounter, Forbes's suspicious behavior, Max's protective response. The knife? He said Dad sent him for me, but I knew that wasn't true. The deputy immediately spoke into his radio, requesting patrols search for Calvin Forbes, while directing another officer to escort Emma, Lily, and Max inside. The sheriff still interviewing Monroe. We can't interrupt, but you'll be safe here in the station's break room. Emma paced nervously while Lily sat wide-eyed at the table, Max remaining vigilant by the door. Through the small window, Emma could see increased activity, officers rushing about, phones ringing. Deputy Collins engaged in urgent conversation with state police. Something's happening, she murmured to Lily. Something big. The door opened. Sheriff Walker entering, his expression a mixture of concern and controlled fury. Emma, are you all right? Collins told me what happened with Forbes. Emma nodded. Max protected us. Dad, Forbes had a knife. He was trying to get me to go with him. Said you had sent him. Sheriff Walker knelt, embracing his daughter briefly before pulling back to look her in the eyes. You did exactly right, not going with him, Emma. We just got the contents of Melissa's USB drive. It contains video recordings, financial documents, proving Monroe was deliberately dumping illegal chemicals into the lake through that drainage system, and Forbes was helping him cover it up. Is that why Forbes tried to grab me? Because you found the evidence. Most likely Monroe must have told him we had the drive. Forbes probably panicked. Sheriff Walker's expression darkened. We have officers searching for him now. He won't get far. What about Monroe? Lily asked. Is he under arrest? Sheriff Walker nodded. Being processed right now. The evidence on Melissa's drive is damning. She had hidden cameras set up near the drainage pipe, recorded Monroe and Forbes discussing the illegal dumping and what to do about her problem, as they called it. She documented everything right up until the night she confronted Monroe. Emma felt a chill. The night Mrs. Green saw them arguing. Exactly. The final recording on the drive is dated that same night. Melissa speaking directly to the camera, explaining she was meeting Monroe one last time, giving him a chance to do the right thing before she took everything to the Environmental Protection Agency and the district attorney. He sighed heavily. She was trying to be fair, give him a chance to fix the situation legally, but Monroe couldn't risk the exposure, the financial damage to his company. Max Wynn, softly, as if understanding the tragic story his discovery had helped uncover. What happens now? Emma asked. Now we find Forbes, Sheriff Walker replied, and make sure Monroe's charges stick. The district attorney is already preparing the case. Murder, environmental crimes, obstruction of justice. The works. A commotion outside drew their attention. Sheriff Walker moving to the window. What now? Deputy Collins appeared at the door. Sheriff, we've got a situation. Monroe's lawyer is claiming we violated his rights, demanding his immediate release, and Forbes has been spotted heading toward the lake. Sheriff Walker's expression hardened. Secure Monroe. Collins, I want 2 officers on him at all times. I'll handle Forbes myself. He turned to Emma. Stay here with Lily. Officers will keep you safe, but Dad, no arguments. Emma, not this time. His voice brooked no disagreement. Max can stay with you as her father. Hurried away, Emma moved to the window, watching police vehicles racing toward Watson Lake. Sirens blaring, lights flashing. Something's wrong, she murmured. Forbes is going to the lake. Why would he go there now? Lily joined her at the window. Maybe he's trying to destroy evidence or retrieve something, Emma said, a thought suddenly occurring to her. What if there's more? What if Melissa hid more evidence somewhere near that drainage pipe, evidence Forbes knows about? Max barked once as if confirming her theory, pacing anxiously by the door. We need to get to the lake, Emma decided. But your dad said. I know what he said, but Max found the original evidence. He might be able to find whatever Forbes is looking for. To Emma's mind was made up. We can take the back exit. I saw it when we came in. Emma couldn't ignore Max's signal. The golden retriever's body language identical to when he had discovered Melissa's box, his focus absolute. Unwavering, fixed on a spot near the shore, away from where Forbes and the officers were engaged in their standoff. "We need to check it out," she whispered to Lily. "Max knows something." "But your dad and the police?" Lily protested, gesturing toward the unfolding scene, where Sheriff Walker was now wading cautiously into the shallows, calling for Forbes to surrender. "They're distracted with Forbes. This might be our only chance," Emma replied, already moving along the shoreline, staying low behind reeds and bushes. Max leading the way, Lily reluctantly following. Thea reached the spot that had captured Max's attention, a small inlet, partially hidden by overhanging willow branches. The water shallow, rocky, the remains of an old dock jutting a few feet into the lake. Max wind urgently pawing at the water's edge. "What is it, boy?" Emma whispered, kneeling beside him. "What do you see?" The dog barked once softly, then waded into the water, stopping about 3 feet from shore, his nose pointing downward at something beneath the surface. Emma rolled up her jeans, following Max into the lake, the cool water swirling around her calves, the bottom, muddy but firm beneath her feet. She reached down, guided by Max's intense focus, her fingers brushing against something hard, angular, buried in the silt. "There's something here," she called softly to Lily, who remained nervously on shore, watching for any sign they'd been spotted. "Help me." Together the girls excavated the object from the lake bottom, revealing another waterproof container, similar to the one Max had found initially, but smaller, like a fishing tackle box secured with a combination lock. "It's another one of Melissa's boxers." Emma breathed. She must have hidden multiple caches of evidence around the lake. A shout from the distance indicated the situation with Forbes was escalating. The principal, now standing waist deep in water, refusing to come ashore, officers forming a perimeter around him, Sheriff Walker attempting to negotiate. "We should bring this to your dad," Lily urged. "Right now." Emma nodded, tucking the box under her arm as they retreated from the water, Max shaking himself, sending droplets flying. "Let's go around to the main access path. We'll be less visible that way." They circled through trees, staying out of sight of the standoff, making their way toward the park entrance, where police vehicles were parked, Emma's heart pounding with the significance of their discovery, the weight of the box reassuring against her side. "Emma Walker." The sharp voice froze them in their tracks. Principal Forbes stood directly in their path, dripping wet, having somehow broken away from the police, his glasses gone, his thinning hair plastered to his skull, his expression wild, desperate. He held what appeared to be a rock in his hand, brandishing it threateningly. "Give me the box," he demanded now. Emma backed away, clutching the container tightly to her chest. Max immediately placing himself between her and Forbes, growling menacingly. "Stay back, Mr. Forbes. The police are right over there. They don't understand what's at stake." Forbes hissed, his voice barely recognizable. 10 years? I've lived with this 10 years. Of knowing what happened that night, what Monroe did, what I helped cover up. Give me the box, Emma. It's the only thing that directly links me to what happened. To Melissa. Lily edged sideways, clearly planning to run for help while Forbes focused on Emma and the box. It wasn't supposed to happen like that. Forbes continued, his eyes darting nervously around. Melissa was just supposed to be scared off, intimidated, into dropping her environmental crusade, but Monroe lost control, hit her too hard, then it was too late. We had to make it look like she'd left town. You helped him hide her car in the lake, Emma said, the realization dawning. You helped him cover up her murder. Forbes nodded miserably. The school was receiving major donations from Monroe Development, new computer lab scholarships, building improvements. I convinced myself it was for the greater good, that one unfortunate incident shouldn't derail all the positive contributions Monroe was making to the community. She was a person. Emma's voice shook with anger. A teacher from your school, and you helped hide what happened to her. I didn't kill her. Forbes shouted. That was Monroe. I just helped afterward. The drainage pipe, the car, but now it's all falling apart and I can't go to prison, Emma. I just can't. He lunged forward suddenly. Give me the box. Max reacted instantly, launching himself at Forbes, knocking the principal backward, the rock flying from his hand. Lily screamed, running toward the police as Emma backed away, still clutching the box. Forbes struggled with Max, the golden retriever, maintaining his grip on the man's sleeve, refusing to let go despite Forbes' attempts to shake him off. Emma. Sheriff Walker's voice cut through the chaos as he and Deputy Collins raced toward them, weapons drawn. Get down, he shouted as Forbes finally dislodged Max, grabbing for Emma. Aganima dropped to the ground as instructed, still protecting the box. Max immediately returning to her side as the officers tackled Forbes, driving him to the ground. Deputy Collins quickly securing handcuffs as the principal continued to struggle, shouting incoherently about the bucks, about Monroe, about ruined Leviserif. Walker rushed to Emma, helping her to her feet, checking her for injuries. Are you all right? What are you doing here? I told you to stay at the station. Emma held out the waterproof container Max found. Another one, Dad, hidden in a different spot. Forbes was looking for it. He said it links him directly to Melissa's death. Her father took the box, examining it with professional interest similar to the first one, waterproof, locked. He looked at Emma with a mixture of exasperation and pride. You and that dog, I don't know whether to ground you for a month or pin medals on both of you. Max wagged his tail, clearly voting for the medal opciones. Deputy Collins led the handcuffed Forbes to a patrol car. The principal stopped, turning back to Emma. You don't understand what you've done. That box, it contains everything. The videos, the recordings. Melissa documented it all. She was wearing a wire that last night. She recorded everything, including what happened after Monroe hit her, including my voice agreeing to help him. Sheriff Walker's expression hardened. That's enough, Forbes. Save it for your statement. He nodded to Collins. Get him out of here. Forensic technicians arrived, securing the newly discovered box as evidence. Sheriff Walker insisted Emma and Lily remain to give statements. Max, receiving praise from the officers, many stopping to pet him, acknowledged his uncanny ability to locate crucial evidence. How did he know where to look? One of the state police officers asked, watching as Max sat calmly accepting the attention. That's not standard canine training. Emma shrugged. He just knows. He's always been sensitive to things other dogs miss, especially at the lake. It's like he can sense what's hidden underwater. Remarkable animal, the officer commented. You should consider search and rescue training when he's older. He's got natural talent. As the scene was processed, Sheriff Walker kept Emma close as earlier, anger at her disobedience tempered by the significance of what she and Max had discovered. We'll talk about your sneaking away from the station later, he said, but I have to admit that box could be the final piece we needed. Forbes just confessed to helping Monroe conceal Melissa's body after the murder. What about Monroe? Emma asked. Is he still in custody? Her father nodded grimly. His lawyer's making noise about rights violations, but he's not going anywhere. The district attorney is formally charging him with first-degree murder, environmental crimes, conspiracy evidence, tampering the works. Monroe's empire is crumbling as we speak. Lily joined them, having finished giving her statement. My mom just called, she says. Reporters are swarming the school. Everyone's talking about Forbes being arrested. The teachers are all in shock. It's going to be a difficult time for the town, Sheriff Walker acknowledged. 2 prominent citizens arrested for murder, environmental violations that potentially affected the health of everyone living near the lake. There will be investigations, lawsuits, hard questions about who knew what and when. Emma looked out over Watson Lake, its surface peaceful in the afternoon sun, belying the darkness it had concealed for a decade at least. Melissa finally has justice. She tried to protect the lake, protect the town, and it cost her everything. Thanks to you and Max, the truth finally came out, her father said, placing a hand on her shoulder. Melissa would be grateful, I think, to know that someone finally heard what she was trying to tell us all those years ago. As they prepared to leave the lakeside, Emma noticed Thomas Reed, Melissa's former boyfriend, standing at a distance, watching the proceedings. His expression a complex mixture of grief and relief. She approached him. Max at her side. They found everything, she told him. Melissa documented it all, hid the evidence around the lake where she thought it would be safe. Thomas nodded. She was always thorough, always prepared for contingencies. I just wish, his voice broke. I wish she hadn't gone to confront Monroe alone that night. I wish I'd been there to protect her. She was brave, Emma said, trying to save something she loved, the lake, the town, the children who swam there, even when it was dangerous, even when no one would listen. Yes, she was. Thomas agreed, kneeling to pet Max. And so are you, young lady. You and this remarkable dog. I think Melissa would have liked you both very much. The weeks following Forbes's dramatic lakeside confession transformed Pinewood shores in ways both painful and necessary. Television news trucks lined Main Street for days, reporters broadcasting updates on what they called the Watson Lake murder. State environmental officials descended on the town, testing water samples, installing monitoring equipment around the drainage pipes that had carried Monroe development's toxic secrets into the lake. Foyer Sema watched from her bedroom window as another government vehicle parked outside Town Hall, officials in suits carrying briefcases entering the building, where emergency meetings had become daily occurrences. Another investigation, she murmured to Max, who lay on her bed seemingly content to return to normal dog life now that his lake mission was complete. Second box Max had discovered had indeed contained everything Forbes feared. Melissa, wearing a recording device during her final confrontation with Monroe, had captured not only their argument about the water contamination, but the sudden violent attack that ended her life, and most damning of all, Forbes's arrival afterward, his shocked voice agreeing to help conceal the crime. We have no choice, Monroe could be heard saying on the recording, his voice unnervingly calm for someone standing over a woman he had just killed. Help me get her to her car. We'll make it look like she left town when the questions start coming. We'll say she was unstable, emotional, distraught over environmental concerns that weren't supported by facts. Forbes's voice shaking but compliant. What about her research, the water samples, the evidence? I'll find it, destroy it. You focus on controlling the narrative at the school. She was planning to quit anyway, taking a job elsewhere. That's our story. She left early, without telling anyone. Unexpected, but not suspicious. The recording continued, documenting in chilling detail the transportation of Melissa's body to her car, the plan to sink it in the deepest part of the lake near the drainage pipe, a fitting place. Monroe had commented with macabre humor, since she was so concerned about water quality. For Emma, the hardest part had been listening to the recording, with her father present for her official statement. Hearing Melissa's final moments, the fear in her voice, As she realized Monroe wasn't going to address the contamination, the sudden sounds of struggle, her final gasps, the terrible silence that followed it had given Emma nightmares for days afterward. Max, sleeping pressed against her side, providing comfort in the dark. Hoarse, a knock at her bedroom door interrupted her thoughts. Karen, entering with a sympathetic smile. "How are you doing, honey?" Still processing everything. Emma nodded. "It's weird, Mom, knowing what really happened at the lake all these years we've been swimming. They're having picnics, never knowing what was beneath the surface." Karen sat beside her on the bed. "That's often true of life, Emma. Things hidden beneath seemingly calm surfaces. It takes courage to look deeper, like Melissa did. Like you and Max did." Is Dad still at the station? "More interviews?" "Yes, the district attorney is building the case. Wants everything documented perfectly." Karen stroked Max's head, the dog leaning into her touch. "Your father says they're adding environmental crimes to the charges. The water testing showed contamination levels far exceeding legal limits, deliberately concealed." For years, Emma had been researching this aspect extensively online, learning about the chemicals Monroe Development had dumped into Watson Lake industrial solvents. Heavy metals compounds used in construction that could cause serious health issues. Do they think people got sick from it? From swimming in the lake all these years? Karen's expression grew serious. "There's going to be a public health investigation. The mayor announced that this morning they'll be looking at cancer rates, other illness patterns in neighborhoods surrounding the lake. It could take years to determine the full impact." A text message lit up Emma's phone, Lily checking in as she had daily since the discoveries. "Mom's giving interviews to the environmental lawyers today about Melissa's research. Want to come over after?" "Can I go to Lily's?" Emma asked, showing her mother the message. Her mom is talking to the lawyers about Melissa today. Karen hesitated, then nodded. "All right, but straight there and back." Media attention is still intense. People are fascinated by the story of the girl and her dog who solved a decade-old murder. Indeed, Emma and Max had become minor celebrities in the weeks following the arrests. Television stations requesting interviews. Newspaper articles featuring Max's photograph with headlines like "Canine Detective and Hero Dog Uncovers Murder." Sheriff Walker had shielded Emma from most of the attention, limiting interviews, restricting access, but the story had captured public imagination. The loyal dog who heard what no one else could, the girl who trusted her pet's instincts, the young teacher whose quest for environmental justice had cost her life. Eat Lily's house. The mood was solemn. Catherine Morgan, Lily's mother, sat at the kitchen table, surrounded by old photographs of herself and Melissa, news clippings about the case, environmental reports they had gathered together, yellowed with age. "The lawyers say this will be one of the largest environmental lawsuits in state history," she explained as Emma joined them. "Potentially hundreds of affected families seeking damages for health impacts, property devaluation, emotional distress. Will they win?" Emma asked, accepting the lemonade Lily offered. Nodded. "The evidence is overwhelming, not just of the contamination but of the deliberate cover-up Monroe and Forbes will face criminal charges for Melissa's death, but Monroe Development will be bankrupted by the civil suits. The environmental violations alone carry penalties in the millions. All because Melissa wouldn't give up," Lily said, "even when no one would listen. She believed one person could make a difference." Catherine replied, her eyes misting with tears. She used to quote that old saying, "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world." Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. She lived by that, truly believed it. She was right, Emma said, thinking of the transformation happening in Pinewood Shores, the investigations, the accountability, the hard questions being asked of those in power. One person did make a difference. With help from one very special dog, Catherine added, smiling at Max, who had settled comfortably under the kitchen table. "I believe there are forces at work in this world. We don't fully understand, Emma, connections between creatures, intuitions that defy explanation. Your Max somehow knew what was hidden, somehow understood the lake was trying to tell us something." That evening, Emma and Max walked home through the quiet streets of Pinewood Shores, the summer day fading into dusk. Neighbors waving, recognizing the Nalphamus pair, some still calling out thanks or congratulations. Emma had grown accustomed to the attention, though it still felt strange to be known for something that had begun as a simple afternoon walk with her dog Thee past Monroe Plaza, now eerily empty. Monroe Development's assets frozen pending the outcome of multiple investigations, the once proud sign removed, leaving only faded outlines on the building's facade. Further down Main Street, they passed the elementary school where a small memorial had appeared. Photographs of Melissa Carter, candles, flowers, notes from former students who remembered her kindness, her passion for teaching, her love of nature. "She'd be happy, I think," Emma said to Max as they paused to look at the memorial. "Not about becoming famous or anything, but about the truth finally coming out, about the lake being cleaned up, about people caring about what happens to it." Max seemed to understand, wagging his tail gently as Emma read some of the notes left at the memorial. "Best teacher ever. Thank you for trying to protect us. We remember you, Miss Carter," touching tributes to a young woman whose determination had ultimately cost her everything. As they continued home, Sheriff Walker's patrol car pulled alongside them, her father rolling down the window. "Thought I might find you two out walking. Need a ride?" Emma climbed in, Max jumping into the back seat with familiar ease. "How was work today? More interviews?" Her father nodded, looking exhausted but satisfied. Monroe's lawyer is still trying to negotiate a plea deal. But the DA isn't interested with the recording we have. It's an open and shut case. Forbes, on the other hand, is cooperating fully, hoping for leniency in exchange for testimony against Monroe and details about the environmental violations he drove slowly through town, seemingly in no hurry to get home. The mayor called an emergency meeting tonight. The town council, the health department, state, environmental officials, they're discussing a complete remediation of Watson Lake, draining it, removing contaminated sediment, essentially restoring it to its natural state. Can they do that? Drain the whole lake? Temporarily, yes. It would be a major project, take at least a year, possibly longer, but the contamination levels, especially near that drainage pipe, are too dangerous to leave in place. He glanced at Emma. It might have saved lives. You know what you and Max discovered? Not just justice for Melissa, but potentially preventing future illness for kids. Swimming in that water, Emma looked out the window as they approached Watson Lake, now cordoned off with warning signs. No swimming, no fishing access. Restricted by order of the health department. The setting sun, painting the water, gold and crimson. A beautiful, deadly illusion. Dad, she said quietly, do you think Melissa somehow guided Max? Somehow helped him find the evidence? 1 year later, Emma stood at the edge of Watson Lake, Max beside her, watching as Mayor Winters cut the ceremonial ribbon, officially reopening the park. After extensive environmental remediation, the gathered crowd applauded, families eager to return to the beloved recreation area that had been closed for 12 months during the intensive cleanup. And so today the mayor concluded her speech. We reclaim Watson Lake, not just as a natural resource, but as a symbol of our community's commitment to truth, justice, and environmental stewardship. We honor Melissa Carter's memory by ensuring her fight was not in vain, and we thank those whose courage brought the truth to light, especially young Emma Walker and her remarkable dog Max. A plaque had been installed near the lake's edge bearing Melissa's photograph and the words teacher, environmentalist, truth seeker, who gave everything to protect the waters she loved. Below it, a smaller plaque acknowledged Max as the canine hero whose persistence revealed long-hidden secrets. Feels weird seeing Max's name on a plaque, Emma commented to Lily as they walked along the new boardwalk that surrounded the lake, designed to protect the restored shoreline. He just did what dogs do, follow their instincts. Extraordinary instincts, Lily corrected. Not every dog finds murder evidence underwater. The past year had brought dramatic changes to Pinewood Shores. James Monroe, convicted of first-degree murder, environmental crimes, and conspiracy, was serving a life sentence without possibility of parole. Calvin Forbes, having cooperated with prosecutors, received 20 years for his role as accessory after the fact. Monroe Development declared bankruptcy. Its assets sold to pay for lake remediation, and settlements to affected families. Lake itself had been transformed, drained completely, its contaminated sediment removed and replaced with clean material. The drainage pipes that had carried toxic waste removed entirely. The water now clear, blue, healthy, monitored regularly by environmental officials. The rebirth of Watson Lake became a model for environmental restoration projects nationwide, garnering attention from scientists, activists, and government agencies. There's Thomas. Emma pointed to Melissa's former boyfriend, now heading the Melissa Carter Environmental Education Center, established on the North Shore where Monroe's luxury homes had once been planned. He's been wanting to show us the new water testing lab. Thomas greeted them warmly. The past year having softened the grief that had defined him for so long. Welcome official tour guides, he joked, kneeling to pet Max, who accepted the attention regally. The students arrive next week for our first summer program. 20 high schoolers learning environmental science and water protection. He led them through the center, built with funds from the Monroe Development Settlement. Its mission to train young environmental advocates, teach water conservation, and honor Melissa's legacy. The laboratory named for her, equipped with state-of-the-art water testing equipment. She would have loved this, Thomas said, his voice catching, slightly turning tragedy into education, opportunity, inspiration. Emma watched as Lily examined the equipment, her friend having discovered her own passion for environmental science during the past year, planning to study it in college. Melissa changed everything, didn't she? Not just solving her own murder, but making people care about the lake, about what goes into it. Thomas nodded. One person can make a difference. Emma, never forget that Melissa believed it, lived it, died for it, but ultimately proved it true. She set forces in motion that extended far beyond her own life. The ripples continue expanding, touching lives she never knew. Later that afternoon, Emma and Max sat alone at the edge of Watson Lake, in the same spot where Max had first barked at the water a year earlier. The same spot where he had sensed something wrong, something hidden, something demanding to be found. The golden retriever, now 6 years old, had grown somewhat more dignified, though no less attentive to his surroundings, his senses still remarkably acute. You knew, didn't you? Emma said, scratching behind his ears. Somehow you knew she was there, waiting for someone to find her, waiting for justice. Max leaned against her companionably, his warm presence reassuring as always. Sheriff Walker had arranged for Max to receive special training in search and rescue, his natural abilities now honed and directed, though, as the trainer had remarked, We're mostly just teaching him commands for things he already knows how to do. Emma had changed to the events of the previous summer accelerating. Her growth from child to young woman giving her purpose, direction, insight into justice systems, environmental protection, the complex interplay between corporate power and community welfare. Most importantly, she had learned to trust instincts, both her own and those of her loyal companions. Water lapped gently at the shoreline, clear, healthy again. Birds skimmed the surface. Dragonflies darted among the new wetland plants that helped maintain the lake's ecological balance. Families spread picnic blankets on the grass. Children played on the new playground equipment, the community reclaiming their lake with enthusiasm and gratitude. Sheriff Walker joined them, sitting beside Emma on the grass. "Penny for your thoughts, kiddo. Just thinking about how different everything is now," Emma replied. "How one summer changed everything." Her father nodded. "Justice is like that sometimes." Emma delayed but not denied. "If people care enough to pursue it. If they listen when something or someone is trying to tell them the truth, like Max." Emma smiled as the golden retriever's ears perked up at the mention of his name. "Like Max." Sheriff Walker agreed, reaching over to pat the dog, who reminded us all that sometimes the truth is right beneath the surface if we're just willing to look. As the sun began to set, painting Watson Lake in golden light, Emma felt a sense of peace settle over her. The mystery solved, justice served, the lake healed, Melissa's legacy honored and lasting meaningful ways. The circle complete. Max suddenly lifted his head, alert, attentive, looking out across the water as a single white swan glided gracefully across the lake's surface, appearing almost luminous in the fading light. Unusual for Watson Lake, where swans were rarely seen. "Look at that, Sheriff Walker," murmured Beautiful. The swan circled once as if surveying the restored lake, the gathered families, the three figures watching from shore, then with powerful wing beats rose into the evening sky, climbing higher until it disappeared into the sunset, leaving only ripples on the water's surface. Max watched it go, his expression almost knowing, then settled back between Emma and her father, content, peaceful, his mission fulfilled. "Good boy, Max," Emma whispered. "Good boy."